Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a man who built a home in the hyphen between two cultures, a really important pioneer of transnational cinema that you might not know, Nuri Sezer.
Okay, let's just start with this quote, because this right here, this was Nuri Sezer's lifelong battle cry. He spent his entire career pushing back against this idea that his job was to explain his culture to everyone else, instead of just, being an artist making art about people.
To really get Sezer, you have to understand the world he was living in. It wasn't quite Turkey, and it wasn't quite Germany or Sweden. It was a space that he had to carve out for himself, a space he called living in the hyphen.
You see, in Turkey, Sezer said he never really had to think about his identity. He was just a person. But the moment he moved to Europe, everything changed. All of a sudden, he wasn't just an artist anymore. He was a sociological case study, a representative for a whole community. And that was a label he would fight against for the rest of his life.
Now, Sezer's first big battle wasn't against some outside force. It was against a psychological barrier that he felt was totally paralyzing his own community, the powerful myth of return.
I love this idea of the packed suitcases mentality. Selçuk saw so many people in that first generation of immigrants who were living as if their bags were always packed. The belief was that their time in Europe was just temporary, a quick stop to save money and then head back home. But he argued that this was holding them back. It stopped them from putting down roots, from demanding their rights as actual citizens, and from building a real cultural life. He said, no, we have to unpack.
Sezer's whole philosophy was pretty simple. Don't wait around for the host culture to make a place for you. Just build it yourself. So he became this incredible architect of cultural institutions, literally creating the spaces his community needed to not just survive, but to actually thrive.
So in Sweden, way before Berlin became the center of everything, he and collaborators like the absolute legend Tunçal Kurtiz, they just did it. They started Sekur Film. And this wasn't just a business, it was a creative hub for exiled Turkish artists, a way for them to make their own films without having to ask anyone for permission. And this idea just got bigger and bigger when he moved to Berlin. There, he co-founded the professional theater group Tiyatrom. His argument was so brilliant and so simple. Turkish workers are paying German taxes, right? Well, then they have a fundamental right to see that tax money fund their own culture. He figured out how to use the system to serve his own community. And it wasn't just movies and plays. He got involved in BTT, one of the very first Turkish-language TV experiments in Germany. Decades ahead of his time, he understood that if a community doesn't have its own media, it can't see itself, it can't organize, and it can't build any real political power.
But maybe Sezer's most passionate fight wasn't about building things, but about tearing something down. It was a fight against what he called Schubladendenken, this German obsession with putting people into neat little drawers or pigeonholes. He pointed to Fatih Akın's incredible film Head On. He said, look, when this movie wins the biggest prize at the Berlin Film Festival, the establishment celebrates it as a German success. But the soul of that film, the creative energy, that's undeniably Turkish. He just called out the hypocrisy of a system that wanted to claim the success but shove anything different or challenging back into the immigrant drawer.
And when you put it all together, you realize these weren't just random arguments. It was a whole cohesive philosophy. He demanded that a film's identity should come from its soul, not its passport. He insisted that funding was a right, not a favor. He fought for the freedom to tell universal human stories, and he believed that the real, authentic truth wasn't in some drama school. It was out there on the street. And that brings us to this really incredible question. It gets right to the heart of Sezer's whole approach to his art. And this isn't some theoretical question either. It's a real story, the story of a man named Hıdır. So Sezer finds this guy Hıdır, a man with a criminal past, and he casts him in a film. Just finds him on the street. When they asked Hıdır if he was nervous to be on camera, he just laughed and said, "A film camera is nothing. I've spent my life stealing under security cameras." But then, this is the amazing part. Hıdır promised Sezer that he would take every single penny of his acting fee to go back and repay every person he had ever stolen from. For Sezer, that was it. That was everything. That was the ultimate justification for cinema. It wasn't just about telling stories. It was a tool, a mechanism that could offer someone a path back, a way for people on the margins to find redemption and rejoin the moral fabric of the community.
So despite all the struggles, all the racism, the constant fight for funding and recognition, Nuri Sezer never saw his generation's journey as some kind of tragedy. He saw it as a necessary sacrifice.
He truly believed that his role, and the role of his peers, was to be the pioneers,
Their job was to clear the path, to take the hits, and to lay the foundation for the future generations who he was sure would be more radical, more visionary, and would never have to ask for a seat at the table.
And you know what? His vision was totally prophetic. The tough path he forged in the 80s, that became the highway for the celebrated German-Turkish filmmakers we know today. The institutions he built created the ecosystem that allowed directors like Fatih Akin to emerge and win huge awards, paving the way for the current generation who are now shaping the very center of the European film industry.
In the end, Nuri Sezer taught us a really powerful lesson. He refused to be put in a drawer. He proved that the hyphen in Turkish German isn't a bridge you have to cross to get from one side to the other. It's a place. It's a place you can live in, you can cultivate, and you can call home. His life really asks us to look again at those spaces in between and to recognize the pioneers who turned them into places of art and belonging.